All right, this is what I think should be the penultimate video in this series. And of course, penultimate means not just the ultimate, not just the best, but the really, really best. That's what penultimate is. So this is what I think is going to be the penultimate video unless something changes in this series that I started back in May. It was May 8th. It was Motorhead Day, and I ran through the Motorhead catalog, and I've started to go through a lot of bands that I like. This is, I think, the 21st episode I've done. Episode, if you want to call it an episode. It's been co-branded, or it's been a collaboration with my friend Kevin Montavon. He has a podcast that you should go watch or listen to. It's on YouTube. You can also find it just anywhere. Just go on the Google machine, and it's called Ticket Stubs. He has a podcast. His I think he uploads these videos that I'm doing right now. He uploads those as podcasts on his I think it's Podbean or something like that. Just Google Ticket Stubs podcast on the YouTube, and if you want to watch his videos or mine, or download his, you can go to that. So I've talked about a lot of bands. Today I'm going to talk about Soundgarden. I love Soundgarden. I have a pretty long history with Soundgarden, which I'm going to talk about. I'm going to go through their whole discography, more or less. I'm not going to count the compilation albums, I don't think. But I have a long history with Soundgarden. I get into them. You have to watch for the next couple of minutes to see when I get into them. I was not into Soundgarden from the start. Their first release came out in 87 or 88, and I was not into them now. Some of these bands I've talked about, I was into them from the very beginning. Soundgarden was not one of them. Watch for the next couple of minutes, and you'll see when I get into Soundgarden. And so I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to start right now with their first. Now this was Screaming. This was a combination of, and this came out retroactively, of Screaming Life and Fop, which were their first two. Screaming Life was an EP, and Fop was like a EP or a single or something. I think it was only 3 songs, or I think 4 songs. I'm not sure. I don't have too much to say about this one. I got this retroactively after I got into Soundgarden later. I was one of these people that felt like I had to have a band's whole catalog. If I liked them when I got into them, if I liked them, I went back and bought their stuff. So I went back and bought this. I never fully got into Soundgarden's really early stuff. This one and the next one I'm going to talk about, I don't have too much to say. They were, to me, it reminded me a little bit of the way Pantera went. The first few Pantera albums, and then they finally found themselves on Cowboys from Hell, or arguably on Vulgar Display of Power. Some might even say they found themselves on Power Metal when Phil Anselmo joined. For me, Soundgarden was something similar to that. So about this one, not too much to say. Hunted Down is the first song. That was a good one, and that's still because Soundgarden doesn't exist anymore. But still, they, up until their last shows that they played in 2016, I think they were still playing Hunted Down. It's a good song. It did have you could kind of see where Soundgarden was going there. They weren't quite there yet, but Hunted Down was for me, a good representation of where they were going. What else? Tears to Forget. That had kind of like his Chris Cornell's high-pitched screeching vocals, which I was never a big fan of. Which he didn't really abandon those as they went on, but he didn't sing in that style as much as he did back then. Amazing voice. Also, I never liked Rob Halford's that high-pitched screaming. King Diamond, I just didn't really like that. I liked the more powerful. Tears to Forget. Nothing to Say. Nothing to Say was a good one too. I would say that was maybe the first real Soundgarden song that sounded like Soundgarden musically. I think also vocally, just the style of it, the Soundgarden that I would later grow to really love, really love Soundgarden. Nothing to say was the first, I would say the first true classic Soundgarden. And then after that it's Fop, just, yeah, I guess it was, I'm not sure how many songs. I to be honest, I'm not even sure. I only know this as the two of them combined. I'm not even sure which songs were on Screaming Life and which ones were on Fop. But there's Chris Cornell shirtless, and there's Chris Cornell shirtless, and there's Chris Cornell shirtless. For the ladies out there, if you like shirtless men, you can see a lot of them here. Well, only one, but 3 different pictures. So not too much on this. They kind of stated who they were, and then they refined themselves, as I said. So Screaming Life, Fop, a good start. Never really caught on with me. Which brings me to the next one. This one I was also never quite into. This one, Ultra Mega OK. Soundgarden was a band that when they started in 1987, I guess, was when Screaming Life, I think, came out. It's probably just as well that I didn't, I'll put that down for a second, probably just as well that I didn't, I think I wouldn't have liked Soundgarden if I'd heard them in 1987. They at that time in 1987, I was listening to, I basically had 2, or let's say 3 styles of music that I liked. I had traditional like rock and metal, Iron Maiden and AC/DC, Van Halen, Black Sabbath. And I had what I guess later became to be called hair metal, which is kind of one of the dumbest terms for music, along with grunge, which you could say Soundgarden is, and thrash metal. I loved the or of the hair metal in '87. I loved Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, Rat. You know, a little bit later it was Bullet Boys and '87 Faster Pussycat. Still love Faster Pussycat. And the other one that I really liked at that point was in '87 was thrash metal, speed metal. I loved Metallica from '83, Slayer, Sacrifice, Death Angel, Testament. You know, I love that. Soundgarden didn't fit any of those categories, so I'm not sure if I would have liked Soundgarden if I had heard them at that time in '87 or '88. So getting to Ultra Mega OK. This was, I like this a little. I'm still not totally sold on this album all these years later. But for me, it is, or it was, a step up from Screaming Life and Fop. Flowers is a good song, and they were still playing that in their last shows and their last tour. Flowers is a good one. All Your Lies is good. Metallica covered that. All Your Fears Are Lies. Metallica covered that at a Chris Cornell tribute concert, maybe last year, year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that. Beyond the Wheel. Beyond the Wheel, I love Beyond the Wheel. Beyond the Wheel could be, I'll talk about my favorite songs. I can't really choose a favorite on Screaming Life. There was nothing really on there that really stood out to me. But Beyond the Wheel is, I would say, for sure my favorite song on Ultra Mega OK. Maybe even one of the top Soundgarden songs. What a heavy song that is. Beyond the Wheel, it's very strange sounding. It has a really dark, brooding feel to it. It's slow. It's classic. It's how Soundgarden should sound. That's to me the classic Soundgarden is Beyond the Wheel. What else on here? Mood for Trouble. What was that? Oh, that was with it had a strange, cool, but the guitar, acoustic guitar intro of Mood for Trouble was very unique. You never really heard much up to this point and beyond, much acoustic guitar on Soundgarden albums. So Mood for Trouble is good. Circle of Power, that was, I didn't really like that one. That was, what was the guy's name? Hiro Yamamoto, the bass player. He sang that one. The thing that I did like about that, it was maybe kind of a precursor to another style of Soundgarden songs that I really love, which was those kind of short, fast, up-tempo, you know, just a punch in the face and they run Soundgarden songs like Drawing Flies, Face Pollution, Ty Cobb, Kickstand was like that. That was, even though I think Hiro Yamamoto wrote that song, Chris Cornell, Kim Thayil, I don't think they had anything to do with that. But still, it was kind of a sign of what some things Soundgarden would do later. Soundgarden had great song titles. Nazi Driver, Head Injury, Incessant Mace. Those are great song titles, which they would continue through their career, which maybe I'll talk about as I go on. Incessant Mace is a great song. Another that could also be probably my two favorites on this one are Beyond the Wheel and Incessant Mace. Total Black Sabbath. The dun, 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 very Black Sabbath, a little bit reminiscent of War Pigs maybe. But Incessant Mace is an excellent song too. So they were getting better for at this point they were getting better. I like this a lot better than Incessant Mace. Incessant Mace better than Screaming Life and Fop. I still wasn't totally sold, and I should add also, I was not into them at this point. I still had never heard of them, I don't think, Soundgarden at this point. So this was another one that I went back retroactively and got after I became a Soundgarden fan. And I feel like I still, with Ultra Mega OK and Screaming Life, Fop, I still feel like I have a lot to learn from Soundgarden. I haven't fully embraced or fully got into Soundgarden. So that's something to look forward to. Next, 1989. This was Louder Than Love. This was when I got into Soundgarden. And I'm going to put that down. I'm going to tell a little boring story about how I discovered Soundgarden, how I got into Soundgarden. I had a friend at the time, this guy called Don Robinson, who I've mentioned before. I think I mentioned him in a Pantera video that I did, and maybe something else. He introduced me to Soundgarden not personally, but musically, introduced me to Soundgarden in 1989. He called me up, and he was a big music guy. He was like me. We knew each other through music, and he worked at a record store. And he called me, I don't know when this was. I guess whenever the album came out, it was shortly after that. Because he had seen the video for, I don't know if he saw the video for or he heard Loud Love. I think it was he saw the video. And he called me up and he said, oh man, you got to come check it. I think he had recorded it or something and he had it on tape or videotape if it was the video. And, or maybe he had the album because he worked at, as I said, I think I said he worked at a record. Yeah, I did say he worked at a record store. So somehow he heard of Soundgarden before I did, and he called me up and he told me, you got to listen to this band called Soundgarden. And so I went over and I trusted his musical opinion. We listened to we loved a lot of the same music. And now I thought he was saying sound guard, like they guard the sound. And I can't remember for how long it was I thought that. I don't know if it was when I went to his house. I think I went to his house like immediately to check out this band that I thought was Soundgarden, which I thought was a pretty cool name for a band. And then either when I saw the album or saw the video, or he told me it was Soundgarden, which I would say is still one of the greatest band names ever. A Garden of Sound, that's a great name for a band. It's not restrictive, Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath, those are good band names, but they create a certain image, they live up to that image. Soundgarden could be anything. So I thought Soundgarden was a good name, and I thought Soundgarden was an even better name. So I went to his house and I heard Louder Than Love is the album. Loud Love was the song, and I loved it. And I bought this album. This was sometime in 1989. And this was another one, similar to Screaming Life, Fop, and Ultra Mega OK. I did like this at the time. This is my introduction to Soundgarden. I didn't, and I still don't love it like I do some of the ones I'm going to talk about later. But as an introduction to Soundgarden, I think it was much better. This was in 1989. This was when I was also discovered, that was the same year I discovered Jane's Addiction and Faith No More, and that was one of my maybe not just my musical taste, but music in general was changing. It was still heavy. I talked about this with Faith No More and Jane's Addiction. They were still heavy, but they clearly weren't metal, but they appealed to metal fans. The music they were playing was something that was good for me. I'm going to put this down again. I'll get back to it. And so I think Soundgarden, when I heard Soundgarden, they came along at the right time. As I said, if I had heard them earlier, maybe I wouldn't have liked them. But in 1989, my mind was, I think, more open, and I was receptive to new music that was heavy, but it wasn't metal. It was a new style. So Soundgarden was the band for me. Now this one, and another thing about Soundgarden albums is, at least the first three, something about the covers is live shot from a concert, and live shot, I guess, presumably from a concert, and live shot from a concert. Kind of strange. Other album covers look like they could be live albums. And also because this was called Louder Than Love, although it doesn't say it on the cover. It's got it on the spine. So kind of strange, their album covers, and especially this one with the song title, Louder Than Love. It sounded like a live album. But I did like this album. Hands All Over, that's the first, no, maybe with Beyond the Wheel. That could be an all-time favorite. I'm going to tell you about my all-time favorite Soundgarden song when I get to it. You might be surprised. Hands All Over is one of my top ones. One of the, for sure, tops on this album. Gun, I love Gun also. That's a very, very slow, heavy, the songs that I really liked. And what I also liked about it later as time went on was Pepper Keenan, who I mentioned when I talked about Down last week, who I called the MVP of metal. Pepper Keenan jammed with Soundgarden at Lollapalooza in 1992, and they did Gun, and then Pepper Keenan jammed with them again, also on Gun in 2011 or 2012 or something. So, and I was a big COC fan, so it was cool, and that just made me like the song even more. What else? Get on the Snake. Good song, good Soundgarden groove. Soundgarden had a lot of slower, heavier songs, but Get on the Snake it wasn't fast, but it had a great groove, which not too many Soundgarden songs had. What else? Loud Love is another great one. The first Soundgarden song I ever heard, so of course I have an attachment to that. And Big Dumb Sex. Those are the only songs that I love on this album. I mean, the other ones, they're good, but I just never got into them. But so what do we got? Hands All Over, Gun, Get on the Snake, Loud Love, and Big Dumb Sex. So at least about half the album is, for me, fantastic. The other is, as I mentioned earlier, I feel like I still need to sit down and really. I've only had 31 years to get into them. I guess I need more. But yeah, this is a good album. I think for a lot of people, this was their introduction to Soundgarden. It was for me. Not my favorite, but I do like it. So they were getting better. They were going up from Screaming Life Fop to Ultra Mega OK to this one, getting better. Now they got even better with the next one. This one was called Bad Motorfinger. And I'm going to put it down, and if you're watching these, you know when I put it down, it's either because I get distracted or because I'm going to get really serious. It's like when these people, when you watch people on CNN or those, kinds of things, when people say, look, when they start a sentence with look, it's like they're saying, everything that I said before doesn't matter, but when I say look, it means you better start paying attention now because I'm getting serious. So I'm going to say, look, Bad Motorfinger is one of my top. I don't like to pigeonhole something or paint myself into a corner and say it's a top 5 or top 20 or top 10. But Bad Motorfinger is a classic, one of my top albums ever. That's all I'll say. I don't want to say it's 5 or 10. I talked about that with Down Nola and Pantera Far Beyond Driven and Anthrax Among the Living and Metallica Master of Puppets. So my top 5 of all time is probably about 10, and my top 10 of all time is maybe about 25 or 30. But Bad Motorfinger is a perfect, classic, flawless, amazing, fantastic, killer pick your favorite adjective, a positive adjective, and it would probably apply to this. I will say it's a metal album. There's no getting around it. It's a metal album. So Bad Motorfinger is a metal album. It's not traditional metal like Judas Priest or Iron Maiden or Motorhead or like new wave of British heavy metal, but it is a metal album, and I love it very, very much. Every song is great. And it was at this point, this was when Soundgarden became like one of my top bands. And also I think when I realized that Chris Cornell wrote some of the best lyrics, I think especially looking at this now, Rusty Cage had, and I'm not even sure what a lot of them meant, but they just had great imagery. What was there in Rusty Cage? You wired me awake and hit me with a hand of broken nails. What else? I take the river down to Stillwater and ride a pack of dogs. What else? Like God's eyes in my headlights. Rusty Cage is a fantastic song. And earlier this week, Charlie Benante from Anthrax he's doing great covers on his YouTube channel during this quarantine period. He's better than anybody else. He's been very busy. And he did an amazing cover of Rusty Cage with Charlie, did it with, what's his name? Bill Keller from Mastodon on guitar. William Duvall from Alice in Chains was singing, who did an amazing job. I kind of lost track of Alice in Chains after Lane Staley died, but William Duvall sang Rusty Cage amazing, and can't remember the guy's name. Mike Mengi on bass. Amazing cover. So if you're watching this and you don't know that seems impossible. But if you haven't seen that, Charlie Benante, check this out. His cover of Rusty Cage. I love that song. Great riff, great everything. Outshined, I love that song too. Every song. Slaves and Bulldozers. I would say Slaves and Bulldozers, which became kind of a little bit like their signature song. It closed a lot of their shows, including in their final years. It's just very heavy. Maybe some of his best vocals. That towards the end of that song, Cornell's just screaming. Jesus Christ Pose. Jesus Christ Pose. I'm going to talk about this. That was a song I got pretty tired of back at the time, because the video was on Much Music all the time, and I got a little bit tired of it, although I did like it. But looking back on it now, it reminds me of War Pigs, a couple of other ones that I got, Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden, that I got bored of just from hearing so much. But then some years later, rediscovered them and fully wrapped my arms around them and loved them. Jesus Christ Pose is a song that, I've talked about this before with friends. It has no business, or it had no business being a successful, I don't know if it was a hit song, but it was a successful song. It got a lot of play back then. No business. For one, because it was called Jesus Christ Pose, and anything with religion is obviously going to be a problem for a lot of people. But it's just such a strange song. It's very harsh. It's kind of hard to listen to. I'd say Soundgarden in general, sometimes it's hard to listen to. Their songs are they don't go where you think they're going to go, and they don't do what you expect them to do or want them to do. And a lot of their songs are kind of wonky. And Jesus Christ Pose, I think, is maybe one of the best examples of that. The guitar it grates on your ears. I mean that in a good way, because Jesus Christ Pose is a contender for one of my top Soundgarden songs for sure. Although I might contradict myself even later in this video. The guitar, it just sounds, it sounds, I don't know, it's like an alarm going off or something. And the bass it's rumbling. It just sounds angry and aggressive, which is great. And I think that the star of that show, the star of the show in that song is Matt Cameron. That song, it's a very fast-paced song, and you hear the hi-hat, but the drums are going like, a million miles an hour. He sounds like he's the It's like an octopus. If octopus could play drums, it's like that's what it was. Because it sounds like Matt Cameron has more than two hands or two arms. Because and that there's no breaks in that song. It right from the start, from the time the drums come in until the very end, there's no slowdown, no breakdown, no breaks. It's just an incredible song. So Jesus Christ Pose, incredible that song became as popular as it did for many reasons. Musically, lyrically, in terms of the imagery, there's just something very strange about that song. I love it. Jesus Christ Pose. What else have we got here? Face Pollution. That's one of the ones that I mentioned earlier that I really love. Those really short, fast, direct shots to the face songs. Face Pollution, also on this album, Drawing Flies, or as Kim Thao calls it, Drawing Flies, according to Chris Cornell. Searching with My Good Eye Closed. That's another one of the top songs. I feel like I'm putting myself in a box here. Searching with My Good Eye Closed is also a top one on this album for sure. One of my top Soundgarden songs. And I listened to an isolated vocals version of that song last week and again earlier this week. And something that I didn't really notice in the studio, the original version of the song, is towards the end, Cornell is just screaming and screaming, like just gone crazy. It's several different tracks, and he just sounds so good. Mind Riot is another. I think that was my first favorite when I first bought this album in 1991. I think Mind Riot was my first favorite song. And I should say, when I heard it, no, not when I heard it. When I bought Ultra Mega OK, or when I heard Flower reminded me a little bit of Mind Riot. I know you should say Mind Riot reminded me of Flower, but I heard them in the different order that they came out. Drawing Flies, that amazing album. This was produced by Terry Date, if that's important to you, who produced Soundgarden and Overkill. He was a metal guy, and not that they weren't a metal band before this, but this, as I said, this cemented Soundgarden as a metal band. They attracted metalheads. That kind of changed with the next album. I'll talk about that. But they were a flat out now metal band on Bad Motorfinger for sure. When did I buy this? I write the dates. I bought this on October 30th, 1991. I don't know if the camera can pick that up. That's the day I first saw Pearl Jam. I saw my first Pearl Jam concert on that same date, October 30th, 1991. There must have been some relation there. Anyway, so Bad Motorfinger, for me, it's for sure Soundgarden's best album. Super Unknown, the best one, is close. That's a spoiler. But this is my favorite Soundgarden album. I think for quite some time, I alternated between Bad Motorfinger and Soundgarden, and Super Unknown being my favorite. But I think over the years, this has cemented itself as my favorite Soundgarden album. I've talked about this many times. Often you go with whatever comes first. If Super Unknown had come out first, maybe I would have liked it a little bit better. But this is my favorite. Bad Motorfinger is a classic heavy metal album. It's not alternative. It's not grunge. It's not psychedelic. It's metal. All right. Next came in 1994. This also I would call a masterpiece. This is called Super Unknown. Now I will say one thing I don't like about this. I've talked about this before too. It's just a little bit too long, which is bad. But the good thing is, it's not. I mean, some albums are long, and you think, they could have removed this or this. I don't know how they could have made this album shorter, because it's every song is great. Maybe one small exception, Half. That was a Ben Shepherd. It's almost like they said, okay, Ben, you can go and you can do your song. But yeah, it's 15 songs. I think it's about maybe over 70 minutes, and it's hard to digest something when it's that long. But this is I would say almost every bit as good as Badmotorfinger. What can I say about this album? This was, before I talk about the songs, this is when Soundgarden became superstars. They got pretty big with Badmotorfinger. They were on a very steady incline, not decline. They were going up from Louder Than Love and then Badmotorfinger. Super Unknown, I keep wanting to say Soundgarden when I say Super Unknown. Super Unknown made them superstars. And so with that, just like with Metallica and other bands, metal bands, when that happens, when you're kind of an underground band and you reach then, you know, a level of success, and especially mega success like Super Unknown, there's a lot of backlash, and I know a lot of people hated Soundgarden because of this album. I'm not sure why, because if you had heard this, if this had been their first album, or if this had come out after Louder Than Love, or I don't know, as their first album or second album, people would have loved it. I think maybe the thing that people didn't like about this album was that it had, I guess, their first real hit single, obviously Black Hole Sun. And metal fans are weird. We don't like success. We like to keep things to ourselves, which I personally don't care. I like it when bands that I like, when they get big, I like that. As long as they didn't, you know, really change too much. Metallica, you have to go back and watch my video for my thoughts about Metallica when the Black Album came out. But Super Unknown was just like as I mentioned, Jesus Christ Pose had no business being so successful. There are a lot of people that I think they had no business being Soundgarden fans, because this album was very dark and heavy, and really not that much different than Badmotorfinger. If they had come out in reverse order, maybe people would have not liked Badmotorfinger or called them a sellout. I'm not sure, but you know, things like Limo Wreck, Mailman, 4th of July, those are heavy, dark, slow, brooding, moody, angry Soundgarden songs. Just like anything from Louder Than Love or Badmotorfinger or Ultra Mega OK or even Screaming Life, I guess. What else can I say about this one? I will say about Black Hole Sun. I never liked Black Hole Sun. It has nothing to do with the fact that it was a hit. It has nothing to do with the fact that it was a little bit kind of a quieter Soundgarden song. It was pretty far from Jesus Christ Pose. I just didn't like it. Even before it became a single, when I listened to this album, I just didn't really like it. Not sure why. I have no problem with singles. I loved Enter Sandman when it came out. I remember when that came out. I loved it. I did get tired of it, but doesn't mean it's not a good song. And you know, some of the other ones, Ace of Spades is a great song. Some people don't like a band's signature song, but Black Hole Sun, I just never got into that one. Super Unknown, the title track. It's hard to pick a favorite on this one too. Super Unknown is very Soundgarden. For me, and I think for a lot of people, they weren't really even though they were in my book a metal band, they weren't really known for their guitar work or their guitar solos, especially. Super Unknown is one for me that the guitar solo stands out. I love that song. It has not the guitar solo, but the song, especially the intro, to me it sounded like Led Zeppelin. That's a great song. Mailman is great too. Very slow and heavy, dark. I'm going backwards here. Let Me Drown My Wave, Fell on Black Days. Spoon Man was the first single. I think a lot of people didn't like it. I love it. And I still do. I think Spoon Man is an excellent song. The Day I Tried to Live, man, that's dark. And Like Suicide is also dark. Continuing with the song titles, I mentioned Head Injury and Nazi Driver, and on Badmotorfinger, they had some great song titles too, where you just wonder where they come up with this. Searching with My Good Eye Closed is a great song title. Slaves and Bulldozers, I'm still not sure why that song is called Slaves and Bulldozers. Rusty Cage, yeah. So yeah, Fresh Tendrils on this one. I'm not sure what that means, but they had great song titles, very mysterious. This was produced by Michael Beinhorn, who produced Mother's Milk by Red Hot Chili Peppers. And maybe that was another reason. People like Terry Date. People really like, I think, I don't know if I've talked about this before, but I see producers, I'm a big sports fan. And my two favorite things maybe are music and sports. Much more music than sports in the last 10 years. But there was a point in my life for quite a few years where I was a bigger sports fan than music fan. And I kind of see the producer as you see a coach of a football team or a basketball team or the manager of a baseball team. They get either too much credit or too much blame. It's the people that talk about, they pine for the days of Flemming Rasmussen coming back to produce Metallica because he produced Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets. So they think, well, if he comes back and he produces Metallica now, then Metallica is going to have another album like Master of Puppets or Ride the Lightning, which probably isn't true. Although I love Death Magnetic. You go back and see what I said about Death Magnetic. And so I think when people see Terry Date and they say, okay, Terry Date, he produced Overkill and Pantera. So if he's producing Soundgarden, and I'm a metal guy and I like Overkill and Pantera, then that means I'm going to like Soundgarden. So Michael Beinhorn, he wasn't, I don't know what else he produced other than, and I'm not even sure now that I think of it, I'm pretty sure I recognize his name from Mother's Milk. So I'm sure there are a lot of people who they see that, and it doesn't really matter. Either the songs are good or not. Kind of like AC, and I'm getting very off track here, but AC/DC getting, was it Bob Rock or Bruce Fairbairn who produced an AC/DC album in the 90s or 2000, and Brendan O'Brien has, I think, produced their last album or maybe their last two, and AC/DC doesn't need a producer. And I don't know how much input a producer has to how a band sounds. Just like I'm not sure how much input. If you have Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman and Bill Cartwright and B.J. Armstrong and guys like this on a team, and then later Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal, you're going to win championships. Nothing against Phil Jackson, and I shouldn't talk about Phil Jackson or the Lakers or the Bulls. I should be talking about Soundgarden. So, yeah, but I love this album, but there are some people that really have no business liking this one. This is when Soundgarden entered the world of alt rock, 90s alt rock, which I really didn't like and still don't like now. But it's an excellent album. Yeah, Super Unknown is excellent. And another, I've always assumed that's Chris Cornell. Kind of a strange album cover. Bad Motorfinger was excellent. And it's this is like a forest, an upside down forest. And then a picture of, I guess, Chris Cornell. Looks like another kind of a live shot. So Super Unknown is fantastic. And something I forgot to talk about, I'll talk about a little bit, just very quickly, about regrets, concert regrets, musical regrets. I mentioned my number one biggest regret was not seeing, I had a chance in '89 to see Mother Love Bone, and I didn't go. And I had a chance in 1990 to see Pantera on Cowboys from Hell tour, and I didn't go, and I regret both of those. I had the chance to see Soundgarden in, I think it was also in '89 or '90. It must have been '89. They did a tour with Voivod. It was Soundgarden, Voivod, and Faith No More. And as I mentioned earlier, I got into Soundgarden and Faith No More in '89. Voivod I was never into, although that's another great band name. Even though I'm not really a Voivod fan, Voivod is a great band name. I'd put that up with Soundgarden. And as a little teaser, the band that I'm going to talk about in the last episode, which is going to be in a couple of weeks or next week, I'm not sure, whenever I get time, is another great band name. So it was Voivod, Soundgarden, and Faith No More, and they played at the Concert Hall in Toronto in '89 or '90. And I didn't go, and I'm not sure why, because I was into Soundgarden at the time, I was into Faith No More at the time, not Voivod, but I didn't go, so I kind of regret not seeing that, because that would have been pretty cool to see back then. And it's funny how sometime later, I think Voivod was headlining, and you know, it was probably not too long after that Voivod would have been the first band to play on that bill. But so I missed my chance to see Soundgarden in the early days, which I will talk about now. I did see them. I saw Soundgarden 3 times. The first time was at Lollapalooza in 1992. That was I think for me, and I think for a lot of people, the best Lollapalooza. A lot of people will say no because it was too. The bands who were on it ended up becoming too famous. But I saw Soundgarden in 92 on Lollapalooza, and I loved them. And I saw them again in 93 at kind of a strange show, a really cool show. I saw them open for, there was a show in Toronto at CNE Stadium. And I think it was only a one-off show. It wasn't a tour. It was Neil Young headlining, and with Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and Blues Travelers. And so I went to that, and I also loved Soundgarden, and especially Pearl Jam at that show was amazing. And I never saw Soundgarden headline until the third time I saw them, which if I remember, I'll talk about it when it comes up, when I finally saw them headline. So yeah, so my Soundgarden concert history is pretty brief. That's it. Next one. Now, I don't have this, so you can imagine that I'm reaching over here and holding up a CD here called Down on the Upside, which that one for me started to go down. I would put this in the category with Ultra Mega OK and Screaming Like Fop and maybe even Louder Than Love. But I never got into that. And although different, because at this point I was a huge Soundgarden fan, so this was the first disappointment for Soundgarden from me. And I'm not sure why. I listened to it earlier this week just to kind of familiarize myself with it, and it was the first time I had listened to it in the full album in many, many years. And it's better than I remember. And a lot of this I think could have something to do with, I've talked about this before too, is timing. And I think timing is everything. And maybe at that point in 1996, when Down on the Upside came out, maybe I was just tired of Soundgarden. Maybe I was tired of the Seattle bands or the Seattle scene, because I also hated No Code by Pearl Jam, which came out the same year in 96, although I did come to love it. You can hear me talk about that if you go and search my Pearl Jam video when I go through their discography. And or maybe at the time I just honestly didn't like it, but I never got into it. I did like the songs I liked on that. Pretty Noose was good, and Burden in My Hand. I liked all the singles from it. Burden in My Hand and Blow Up the Outside World. That was okay. Not. I think that was it was a single. I didn't like it as much as Burden in My Hand or Pretty Noose, but Blow Up the Outside World was okay. And I really liked Ty Cobb. Ty Cobb was similar to the ones I talked about several times. Face Pollution, Drawing Flies, Drawing Flies, Kickstand, a short, fast, aggressive, cool Soundgarden song. Other than that, I never got into it. When Soundgarden kind of came back in 2011 or 2012, I did go back and listen to it. I did end up liking Never the Machine Forever, and what was the other song I liked? I don't have it with me, so I can't look, and I don't have my other phone with me, so I can't check the track list. But it was, when I listened to it recently, it was better than I remember. Again, maybe just like as I said, I feel like I still have a long way to go in my Soundgarden fan career, because there's a lot of stuff that I'm not super familiar with, and Down on the Upside is one. I just maybe was tired of them at that point. So not too much to say about Down on the Upside. And that was 96, and then they broke up. Soundgarden didn't exist anymore. And I think over the years they put out a live album called, Live on Interstate 5 or something like that. They put out one or two they had the hits and the B-sides or something. And also, I should say, Soundgarden had a lot of B-sides. I haven't talked about that. I really have to do a lot of digging to get into their B-side. They had a lot of, from the early days and even from all through their career, they had covers and stuff they never released. Pearl Jam was good for that too. So Soundgarden didn't do anything for what was that, 96. They didn't do another album until 2012 when they did King Animal. And kind of in similar way, but maybe in the opposite of Down on the Upside. I love it. I'll say from the bat, right off the bat, I love this album. I would put this at number 3 for me. Bad Motorfinger is number 1, and Super Unknown is 2. For me, this is number 3. I like this better than Louder Than Love, Ultra Mega OK for sure. But again, similar as I said, maybe with the timing of it. Maybe I just was happy to have Soundgarden back in my life, or happy to have them as a band again. But I mean, I think I really did just really like Soundgarden. This album, King Animal. If this had come out, and I've talked about this a little bit, if this had come out instead of Down on the Upside, maybe I wouldn't have liked it. And if Down on the Upside had come out in place of this, maybe I would have loved it. So the timing, maybe things that are happening in your life or musically, your tastes change a little bit over years. You still have your core, things that you like. I'm never going to stop liking 70s Kiss or 70s Black Sabbath or Metallica, Motorhead, and Iron Maiden. None of that is ever going to change. But within those big boxes, you have smaller boxes. And but anyway, I love this one. And I'm going to tell you my favorite Soundgarden song of all time, better than Loud Love and Jesus Christ Pose and Searching With My Good Eye Closed and Super Unknown. I don't think there was anything on Down on the Upside that I would consider one of my favorite Soundgarden songs. But this album has my number 1 favorite Soundgarden song ever. Do you know what it is? I'm going to tell you in a minute. But this was great. Been Away Too Long was the first song they released from that a few months maybe before the album came out. And I liked it right from the start. I thought, Soundgarden, it sounds like they never went away. They didn't really, this sounds bad, but they didn't change their style. It was great to hear how Soundgarden sounded in 2012. And Been Away Too Long was exactly what I wanted to hear from Soundgarden at that point. My favorite Soundgarden song of all time is Non-State Actor, the second song. I love that song. That's one of those ones that I can't, my cat is interrupting. It's one of those songs that I can't listen to once. So I think every time I listen to Non-State Actor, I have to listen to it again a second time. Just an amazing song. And amazing to think that after so many years away and so many years as in their existence, that they could write a song or create a song that I liked better than anything else they had done before that. And By Crooked Steps, which was the third song, the next song, that could also be in my top 5, I would say, Soundgarden songs ever. I love it. Non-State Actor, man, I love that song. I listened to it, I think 2 or 3 times earlier today. What else? 1,000 Days Before. That's a strange one. What a weird song that is. Soundgarden had a lot of, as I mentioned earlier, their songs didn't always do what you wanted them to do. They had, I'm not a musician, so I'm not sure if I'm saying this right. They had strange time signatures. Their songs were kind of wonky. And I think 1,000 Days Before is one. It's another great example of that. It just everything, the timing is off. It sounds like they're all playing different songs, unrelated to each other, and then they just put it all together, and it works as a song. It's almost like if anybody knows Goodfellas, the great movie Goodfellas, Joe Pesci sees the painting and he says, I like this one. The one dog goes one way, the other dog goes the other way. And the guy says, what do you want from me? It's kind of like that. That song reminds me of that line. You have the drums, you know, playing this thing, and the guitar, and I guess the bass doing another thing, and Chris Cornell doing another thing, and so it's like the drums are one guy, the bass and the guitar another guy, and Chris Cornell. Sorry, the drums are one dog, the guitar and the bass are another dog, and Chris Cornell is the guy saying, "What do you want from me?" And you know, when you see it as a painting, people like it. Joe Pesci liked it, or Tommy, what was his name? Tommy DeVito. He liked it, and so when you put all these together, 1,000 Days Before is a great Soundgarden song. Also one of my top ones from King Animal. What else is on this? Blood on the Valley Floor is excellent. Black Saturday, that was a good one. That had acoustic guitar too, which I mentioned is kind of rare in Soundgarden. Rowing, I love that song, especially at the, that's the last song on the album, especially after, I don't know if it's after the second verse or after the second chorus. Chris Cornell just explodes. He's just wailing on that song. So this was great. I was very, very happy that Soundgarden was back. Not just that they were back, because I was a little bit skeptical when I heard that they were back together and putting out a new album, because the last one, which had been at that point 16 years earlier, I thought, I didn't like that last one. My cat is up here again. So, but when I heard Been Way Too Long, I loved it. And so I thought, all right, faith is restored. And then when the album came out, I did love it too. Now, this was when I did see them headline for the first time ever. I mentioned I saw them in 92 and 93, once at the festival, Lollapalooza, and then opening on the bill with Neil Young and Pearl Jam, so playing a shorter set. And so when they played here in Mexico City in 2000, do I have the date here? May 31st, 2013. I was very, very excited. And even better than going to a concert is when you're lucky enough to have friends who have tickets or can get you on the guest list. And my friend Francisco Paco in Mexico City, he called me maybe the day before or sent me a message and said that he had a bunch of, I think he had like 8 free tickets. I'm not sure how he got them or what happened. So I said, yeah, of course, I'm going to go. So I went, and I would say that was one of the best concerts I've ever been to. I love that concert. Again, maybe it was just because I was happy to have Soundgarden back, but I think also my taste in music, not my taste, but what I considered to be a good concert had changed. I was really into Pearl Jam from the start, but then again from 2003. And I love that Soundgarden played a really long time. They played, I think maybe about 2.5 hours. They played 21, 22, 23 songs, different songs every night, so you never knew what songs they were going to play. And the crowd was great, and I really, 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 I don't want to say it's one of my top 5 or 10, but it was just one of the concerts that I really, really enjoyed the most. And I did get, I got the set list from that concert, May 31st. You can see it, Palacio de los Deportes, May 31st. 2013, and no complaints about this set list. First time seeing Soundgarden headline, can't complain about anything. Some people like to complain about set lists. They open with Searching With My Good Eye Closed. Searching With My Good Eye Closed, as I said, is one of my favorites. Jesus Christ Pose. Rhinosaur. That's the other song that I couldn't think of earlier from Down on the Upside. That I do like that one too. Which I think it was only after they kind of got back together that I went back and liked Rhinosaur. Burden in My Hand, My Wave, The Day I Tried to Live, Been Away Too Long, Never the Machine Forever. So they did a few songs from Down on the Upside, but they're all the ones I liked. Hunted Down, going back to the first, first Soundgarden song ever, Drawing Flies. Non-State Actor, there it is, my favorite Soundgarden song of all time. Right in the middle, my God, that song is incredible. Loud Love, Mailman Tari, Outshined, Super Unknown, New Damage, 1,000 Days Before, Fell on Black Days, Blow Up the Outside World, Rusty Cage. Now they had I Awake on the set list. They didn't play it. Instead, they played Flower, which was great for me because I like Flower better than I Awake. and they didn't. Maybe one small, I can't even say it's a disappointment. They were going to play either Beyond the Wheel or Slaves and Bulldozers as the last song. They did they did Slaves and Bulldozers. Why can't I say that? Slaves and Bulldozers. So it would have been cool to hear Beyond the Wheel, but again, for seeing Soundgarden for the first time, at that point it had been 21 years since I'd seen Soundgarden, and the first time I'd ever seen them headline, and seeing concerts in Mexico City is always great. So yeah, I really, really, really loved that concert. And then now they obviously they never came back again, so that was their one and only show in Mexico City. But last year they released, and this was a very good substitute for another Soundgarden show. They released this last year. This was from the same tour, maybe even close to around the same time. They played at the Wiltern in LA, and they recorded this for Live at the Artist Den. They released it as a concert video, and I saw it. They played it in the theaters. I think it was last year or 2 years ago. I think last year. And they played it here at Cinepolis, which is the big, it's like AMC in the States, or Famous Players, or Cineplex Odeon in Canada. It's one of the two big movie houses in Mexico. And they played it one night only. And I went and I saw it. They showed this whole thing. I guess they played 2.5 hours. And oh man, I loved it. It was so great sitting in that theater, watching it on the huge screen, loud, hearing all these songs. And at this point, as I said, Soundgarden, maybe if I'd seen them do a show like this some years before, I wouldn't have liked it. But I really, really appreciate now bands that play for a long time and change the set list. And I've had this discussion with people before, and they say, what's so special about changing the set list? Who cares? But to me, it's like, well, because you don't know what they're going to play. Maybe they're going to play 5 of your favorite songs that they haven't played in years, or and also I think it keeps it fresh for the band instead of going through the motions. So this was amazing. Now they open here with Incessant Mace. Let me see if I can find the date of when they recorded this. I guess it was right. I know it was I think it was in 2013. So it was maybe around the time of the Mexico City show, February 17th, 2013. And the show that I saw them in Mexico City was May 31st. So a few months apart. And this was, they played almost every song from King Animal, which I loved. They did, let me see, how many songs from King Animal? Been Away Too Long, Worst Dreams, Tari, By Crooked Steps, Rowing, Non-State Actor, Black Saturday, Bones of Birds, 1,000 Days Before, Blood on the Valley Floor. 10. They played 10. I think there were 11 or 12 songs on King Animal. They played 10 of them. So I was very, very happy to see that. And I think live albums are I've mentioned before, they're kind of hit or miss. I do love this one. I think maybe because I saw this tour, and I think also seeing it in the theater made it, I don't know, just more memorable. So I bought this album and I love it. Soundgarden, and amazing that Chris Cornell, I think when he was in Audio Slave, who I was never really a big fan of, there was maybe a time when he maybe lost his voice, but he sounded great. I thought he sounded great on this. And when I saw him in Mexico City, he sounded great. And I think during that whole time, I've gone back and seen videos of him. Chris Cornell, for the way that guy sang, you know, there was a lot that could go wrong with his voice. And at this point in 2012, 2013, his voice was as good as it was maybe, you know, in the heyday of Soundgarden. So that was it for their discography. That was the last thing they did officially. If I remember correctly, now of course Chris Cornell died in 2000. Was it 16 or 17? I remember that. The aforementioned, my friend Kevin Montavon, who I talked about in the very beginning of this video, who's the bearer of bad news for me. He was the one who told me about, he was at the concert when Dimebag was killed in 2004. And I learned about Dimebag dying from Kevin Montavon in 2004. And this year I learned about Neil Peart dying, also from Kevin Montavon, and also Chris Cornell. I guess it happened overnight. So when I woke up in the morning, I turned on my phone and I checked my messages, and I saw that I had a message from Kevin. And he told me, I can't remember what, he said something like I think his message was just something like, "Oh my God, Cornell," something like that. Or he didn't say Chris Cornell died. It was something like that. And I thought, like, what happened? So I immediately checked, and I saw that that he had died. I think at first I just knew that he had died, and then it was a little bit later, it was probably only seconds later, that he actually killed himself. And that was one of the, obviously when you listen to music, especially now, these guys are getting older, and this doesn't apply to Chris Cornell. A lot of them are dying, Lemmy and David Bowie, and and so a lot of guys in bands that I've liked, that I've been a big fan of, they've died. Lane Staley, Chris Cornell, who else? Shannon Hoon, Scott Weiland or Wieland, and you think, oh, that's too bad, and I don't know, for me, none of those guys. But the ones that really, I guess, affected me or were just like made me feel really bad were Dimebag, Lemmy, and a few weeks ago, Eddie Van Halen. I'm a huge Van Halen fan. I did the video doing this, going through the Van Halen discography. And Chris Cornell was one. I guess it has maybe something to do with the fact that he killed himself. It's not like he just died because he was sick or something like that. When somebody, commits suicide, it has a different feeling. And so when Chris Cornell died, that was very, I can't say it was difficult for me. It's not like he was a family member, but that was one of the big ones in my life that I thought, man, I can't believe this happened. And I really miss Soundgarden, because I think they were working on an album that year in 2016 or 17, whenever it was. And I think Matt Cameron had kind of taken the year off from Pearl Jam, and they were all going to get together. They were working on an album. And I thought, they're going to come back to Mexico again on this tour, and I'm going to see them again. And of course, none of that ever happened. And so that was the end of Soundgarden. And I guess that's the end of me for this video, because I have nothing else to say for Soundgarden. But what a great band Soundgarden is. I really loved them through a lot of the 90s, and loved them again in the last few years. They've had a real renaissance with me. I can say, if people talk about the big four of grunge, of course everybody talks about the big four being Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, and Anthrax. What people consider the big four of grunge: Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and Nirvana. For me, Pearl Jam is for sure number 1. Nirvana is for sure number 4. For years, I always thought, for me, Alice in Chains was number 2. I think Soundgarden has maybe passed Alice in Chains in the realm of the big four of that style of music whose name I hate, that I won't say. I already said it. It's grunge. So, yeah, I have to go back and discover Soundgarden. I have a feeling they have a lot of stuff in the vault, too. I'm sure they'll release some things over the years. Or over the next coming years. And what else can I say about Soundgarden? Amazing band. Man, oh man, I love Soundgarden. I'm going to go listen to them right now. So that's it for Soundgarden. One more video of these I'm going to do. I don't think I'll get a chance next week, but that's not for me. And so I'm gonna do one more of these videos. So until then. This is me talking about Soundgarden. Over and out. See ya.